Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming 5K Modern Open. I'm Tandy, joined by Ross and Miriam. So hi, Ross.
Hi, Ross.
We're here for the first Apex Con of 2024, Season 4 of the Apex Gaming series. We have 4 rounds in the books, but it's shaping up to be a pretty sweet-looking tournament. Ross, why don't you give us a breakdown of what the top tables are looking like?
Yeah, so I'm looking at standings here after round 4 going into round 5, and there are 4 players with an unblemished record at 4-0. They are Brandon Carpenter, Evan Heritage, Jacob Fumich, and Logan Hilbert. Fumich playing Scam, the other 3 all playing Yawgmoth. So
Ugh.
Yawgmoth having a big weekend here. Looking at my metagame breakdown, we had 5 copies in the field. There were a few decks I couldn't get to, so there might be 1 or 2 more total, but still 3 out of 5 or 6 in at 4-0. Yogg having a great day. So it's going to be Logan Hilbert and Evan Heritage on a backup feature match playing a Yogg Mirror. We are going to focus on Jacob Fumich on Scam against Brandon Carpenter on Yogg. 2 players we have seen earlier today. I know Fumich made the semifinals yesterday in the team event, playing with May French and Don DeLozier.
Exactly.
So looking to go back to back here, needs to take out a very talented Yawgmoth player to do it. Our other backup feature is going to be Alex Treadway playing that unique take on Tron with Leyline and
Cool,
Scion.
man. I'm sorry. I like that deck.
And he has already picked up a draw, so he's at 301, 10 points. So got a pair down to a 9-pointer. He's playing against Randy Webbing, our Season 1 Invitational champion from a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Randy playing Rhinos, I believe. Yes, he is playing Domain Rhinos with Leyline and Scion. So
with the Ardent Plea replacing straight up the Von Opers. Yeah.
So another Leyline Scion mirror there as our other backup. But we were watching these 2 undefeated players, and based on my read of the standings, I think the 2 undefeateds after this round, should neither of those top 2 tables draw, are going to be pretty easily be able to double draw into our top 8. So I think this is a win in it.
Alrighty, well, the players are situated in the feature match area and just about ready to go. So let's go watch Jacob Fumich versus Brandon Carpenter. That's Scam versus Yawgmoth. We're going to have Fumich on your right playing that Rakdos Scam deck, the powerful Grief strategy featuring red and black, versus Carpenter on Yawgmoth Ran Physician, the Golgari deck built on assembling a massive amount of small creatures and sacrificing them to draw cards and kill your opponent's stuff or kill each other, you know?
Yeah. Neither player coming with anything particularly spicy, pretty stock lists on both sides. Just play good decks and play them well.
Yeah, I do think that Outlaws of Thunder Junction has some modern power level cards that will eventually affect the format, but we are in pre-release today, so no one was really able to playtest any of the new cards, and so it would have been pure speculation in terms of how good or bad they were. But hoping to see some more Thunder Junction over the next few weeks. But here's Fumich doing the Not Dead After All, Double Grief. Get your 2 best cards. That's Cauldron and Shieldred down, leaving them with just a handful of lands, it looks like. Raggy.
Yeah, not what he wanted to see, I'm sure, but plenty of mana still. That is what the Yawgmoth deck needs to operate. So if you can find some gas off the top, Carpenter can definitely come back in this game.
All right, finds Court of Calling for the draw for turn, puts it on the table. This is kind of my opponent knows these 2 cards but doesn't know this card. Grief going to keep on smashing. Carpenter down to 16.
A little early for the cord to come off the top. Would have preferred something like a Wall of Roots, something that you could have played on turn 2.
Fumich, instead of attacking the Delighted Halfling and preventing the potential for a 4-drop this turn, going to go ahead and just deploy a Voidwalker to apply some more pressure, using that Fatal Push maybe next turn to kill a 4-drop like Yawgmoth.
Yeah, unless Carpenter exactly drew a Yawgmoth on his turn or the 1 Shieldred, it's much better for Fumich to get pressure down and give Carpenter the fewest number of draw steps to get back into this game.
This is one of the few decks, is Golgari Yawgmoth, that plays 4-cost creatures in this format, and so you actually get the Revolt plus Fatal Push trigger quite a bit, and it's sometimes better than just killing the 1s.
Well, Carpenter did find the Yawgmoth, actually surveilled off of Underground Mortuary on the end step and left it on top, so maybe that is the start of him turning this one around.
All right. Well, Fumich going to go quick fetch in here to turn on Revolt. See what land he goes and gets. Basic Swamp. Fumich firmly in the driver's seat, completely dismantling Carpenter's opener, and now has the answer for the Yawgmoth.
And that should lock up this first game.
A quick one, but a lot of spells played in these first few turns from both players.
Does Carpenter want to cash in the Delighted Halfling for a card and to shrink one of these creatures? Looks like he does.
See which one he goes after. All right,
Yeah.
Voidwalker going to get -1/-1. Carpenter going to lose a life and draw down to 14. Then Yawgmoth down and an attack for 6 coming across, seems like.
Love shrinking the Voidwalker there because now it is vulnerable to an Orcish Bowmaster. Whereas the Grief would be just shrunk down to 2 toughness.
What do you think about using the Dauthi Voidwalker to cast a Yawgmoth?
Nah, just get him dead.
Yawgmoth versus Yawgmoth is kind of ridiculous.
There's a couple of good draws here from Carpenter. Finds another Yawgmoth and a Yawgmoth. Need to pay mana for that Yawgmoth. There you go. But he can't afford to take another hit. This is 9 damage coming across, so he'll actually have to double block the Grief to stay alive.
Does the Dash Ragavan change the math? That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Not quite.
It still just requires a double block on the Grief. And this is going to drop Carpenter to 2, so the Yawgmoth really doesn't do a whole lot. You'll have just a Yawgmoth with a counter, and he needs to draw an untapped black source even to cast it.
Yeah, we're just going to pack it in. Brandon doesn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Says, we're going to try again next game. So, fast game 1, but that means that we might get to some backup matches and have a lot of Magic for y'all for round number 5. As these players reach for their sideboard, I'm going to have Ross give you his expert analysis. The Yawgmoth deck from Carpenter needs some help. What's he got for you?
So, in the sideboard, I see L1 chords. I've got a paper deck list here from Brendan Carpenter. His handwriting leaves a little to be desired. It's an Elven Chorus, a Reclamation Sage, 2 Force of Vigor, 2 Fulmin Intermage, 2 Endurance, 1 Team Gender.
Team Amber,
yeah. 1 Terra Sunder, 1 Soulless Jailer, 1 Legion's End.
No, that's a Soulless Driver.
2 Pick Your Poison, 1 Haywire Might, and 1 Fatal Push.
That's an Arbor Push.
So, checking out the sideboard, I like the Fatal Push. I think having some removal to keep those early creatures at bay, buy yourself some time.
Voidwalker is just particularly problematic for your deck.
Yes, that one in particular. The Legion's End, for that reason, should also come in. And then Elven Chorus is a card that these decks play specifically for the Rakdos matchup.
Yeah.
That's your end game haymaker that can really take over a game once both players have traded a bunch of resources early.
All right, on the other side of things, Fumich does have Rakdos Scam and a lot of cards that can kill creatures. Is there anything in particular out of the sideboard that you really like against Yawgmoth?
So, looking at his sideboard, I see 1 Ingrass Rampage to complement 1 in the main, a second copy of Blood Moon, 1 Bonecrusher Giant, 2 Curse Totem, 1 Engineered Explosives, 1 Hidetsugu Consumes All, 1 Kolaghan's Command, 2 Legion's End, 1 Lilion of the Veil, 1 Magus of the Moon, 1 Nile Spellbomb, and 2 Unlicensed Hearse. I like the Legion's Ends. There's a lot of cheap creatures to hit, whether it's mana creatures, Yawgmoth that you can exile, Orcish Bowmaster. I like the Kolaghan's Command as a versatile answer to Agatha's Soul Cauldron.
Yes, can kill Delighted Halfling along with it.
I like the Bonecrusher Giant as more removal. The Curse Totems are obviously excellent. They're there specifically for this matchup. The Edict removal is not very good in this matchup, so Ingrass Rampage is not coming in, and likely the main deck copy is coming out. Nor Liliana. The real question for me is, do you like, maybe something like Hidetsugu Consumes All? These decks usually trim down on 1s in sideboarding, so I'm not in love with it. And how much do you like Graveyard Hate? I think with the rise of Soul Cauldron, it gets a little bit better, but it tends to be overrated in these matchups, in my opinion.
I agree.
We'll see how Fumich feels. So all 3 pieces of Graveyard Hate are maybes.
Undying effects are like graveyard adjacent almost. Like they touch the graveyard and come back. Yes, you can do some like rest in peace stuff to kind of stop that half of the combo, but it's rare that they just walk into unlicensed Hearse activation or whatever.
Generally, if I'm siding in a card and it's not a good generic draw late in the game when I'm empty-handed, it's probably not that good, even if it has some applications. That's my general rule.
All right, we are underway here for game number 2. We got dueling 1-drops. Carpenter with that Delighted Halfling from the Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth set, and Fatal Push is the response from Fumich to take it down. And we're going to go back Carpenter's way in just a moment and see if he has anything to deploy on turn 2.
And really just wants to get his mana online, so a Wall of Roots here would be excellent. Even just another 1-mana creature, especially with that Fatal Push in hand. You could play second mana creature, then push a Dauthi Voidwalker, for example.
Wall of Roots. It's a nice one. Here's Legion's End. Is there another Walrus in hand? It would be backbreaking. No,
Oh.
thank the Lord.
But there's also no third land in Carpenter's hand.
Oh, it's coming.
Two copies of Grist. This is a big draw step. If you can find the third land and get the Grist online, he's looking pretty good. If he's missing land drops here and not progressing his board, then Fumich can take over this game very quickly.
Oh, bricks with a Court of
That's
Calling.
probably the worst draw on the deck at that point.
Fatal Push is in hand, so we do see that out of the sideboard, and maybe Carpenter wishing that had kept in maybe another mana creature or something. I don't know.
I think Fumich has a Fable here. Thought I saw one flashed in the hand, which,
Same.
yeah, the Goblin Shaman will die to a Fatal Push most likely, but you'll still get a lot of value out of the Fable, and that's a great play here.
All right, Fumich finds that third land. Here's Fable the Mirrorbreaker. And the token goes down, just like you said.
Carpenter says, don't even bother. Let's not waste this time.
Land! There it is.
Okay, okay.
We got a game.
Let's get a big die on that Fable, please. Maintain our game state. I think one missed turn is easily recoverable for Carpenter. Ooh, Angrass Rampage still in the deck for Fumich.
Pretty sure that says Edict of Planeswalker.
Yeah, so it is an answer to Grist. Maybe that's reason enough to have it still in the deck. And it's an answer to Soul Cauldron. Yeah, that's probably still good enough.
I think it's just a good card. It was one of those cards that, discards it
Yeah.
to Fable, so I guess I'm wrong.
My brain just shortcutted Edict bad against all creature deck.
Yeah. Edicts these days, they don't make them like they used
Yeah.
to. Remember, was it, not Sudden Edict. It was a Sorcerer and Cruel Edict? Sorcery Edict? That was like standard modern Pioneer for a long time. Diabolic Edict. That was the
That's
go-to
the
for
instant.
forever. Yeah,
From Tempest.
I believe that's right. When I first saw Sheoldred's Edict, I straight up said I thought it was the best edict ever printed. I think I'm still right.
Interesting. Fumich has Grief in hand, decides to play a land tapped and just deploy another Fable instead.
Interesting.
I kind of like using your mana more efficiently and getting a menace creature to pressure the Grist. But Fable also quite good. Maybe trying to race towards that double reflection end game.
Maybe that's the only way out against these two Grists, because getting rid of one of the Grists is tough. Getting rid of two is real tough.
It's a Delighted Halfling off the top for Carpenter. So can plus the Grist get another token and cord for 2 even after the Halfling. That might be a really good setup for, a double minus Grist turn.
Okay, Pendlehaven is the land. We're going to attack with the insect token.
Okay.
Interesting.
So that suggests that there's no plan to cord this turn. Maybe going to wait until we can cord for a Yawg.
We're going to
okay.
sack that and kill the 2/2. That's going to keep the mana generation for Fumich on lock for a little while.
And just a Halfling.
Okay. Going to go back Fumich's way. Is there a Dryad Arbor in Carpenter's build? I know sometimes they move away from it.
Is, I think. Although we've seen a lot of Yawg players, so it might have been somebody else with the Dryad Arbor.
Yeah.
Carpenter has one.
So we can cord for 0 with Halfling and 2 Overgrown Tombs just to go get Dryad Arbor, and that might be what we see here in just a moment. All right, Chapter 2 of Fable the Mirrorbreaker happening now.
Discards Grief and Legion's End. Interesting. 2 pretty good cards.
Yeah, I think he drew 2 lands for his troubles as well.
Not entirely sure what Fumich is digging towards. He's discarded pretty aggressively to these Fables. That usually suggests there's one card that you're really trying to find, and you don't care if you give up a little bit of equity from your hand to dig deeper towards it. But I don't know what that card would be. Maybe Curse Totem?
Yeah, maybe. It's a powerful sideboard option that shuts down a lot of the stuff that this deck has going on.
But it doesn't shut down Grist.
No, but this Grist now not looking so good against Grief plus backside of Fable, because we can keep chewing up the hand and attacking the Grist and forcing weird blocks.
Yeah, there was some potential to minus this Grist again and deal with the Grief that way, then play the backup Grist, but the Grief takes the backup Grist, so that is no longer an option.
Okay, but I think that means Carpenter might get this Sheoldred down. There's a Fatal Push in hand for Fumich, though, and we will transform the Fable next turn to be able to get Revolt, so...
Yes, the Saga's exiled, then come back transformed, so they leave the battlefield, turning Revolt on.
Alright, I think maybe those things I thought were land are not lands. So Fumich has push and 2 other cards that are the same card that I can't quite tell what they are. Thought they were maybe all Blackleaf Cliffs, but I just see a Blackleaf Cliffs in play that's tapped, and I don't know.
So another halfling off the top for Carpenter, and has that Shieldred. Does he want to deploy the Shieldred and potentially lose it to a removal spell?
I think we're in the phase where we're considering minusing the Grist to get rid of either the Reflection or the Grief. Just trying to figure out if he's going to do that or not before we make a decision on how to sequence or play stuff.
Well, better to just tap out and then sack one of the tapped creatures if you're going to -2 the Grief.
Yeah.
Or sack the Yawgmoth, I guess. That's probably better.
Yeah.
I thought it was a halfling, but it was a Yawgmoth off the top.
Grist going to go up.
Yeah.
Makes a 1/1.
Usually you don't want to give your Grists away. They're so good.
Finds the Cursed Totem. This might actually be ball game. Once we deal with this Shieldred, we take 2 from the Shieldred, and now we flip. And Fatal Push Revolt is turned on because it exiles and then comes back on the backside. No cards in hand, but we can maybe hit during the draw step.
And now you can copy the Grief.
Is that Molten Collapse?
With the
Reflection. That what that is?
Okay, opting not. Yeah, didn't need to do that now that there was only one blocker. And yeah, that's a huge turn for Fumich. Dealt with all of the key threats on Carpenter's side of the battlefield. Leaves him with virtually nothing relevant.
Whoa, but we do pick up a flash creature. We were going to steal the card during the draw step, Reflection plus Grief, but Endurance is the pickup, and now Carpenter can eat one side of the graveyard. Let's see which one he picks.
One of the very few instant speed cards in this Yawgmoth deck, so it's a reasonable one, but with the one Fatal Push from the sideboard was already drawn from Carpenter, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So without that, I'm not sure what he can draw. I guess Chord of Calling. Carpenter needs to draw Chord for another Grist in order to break up this Grief Reflection combo.
Yeah, it has to be instant speed. Anything that's sorcery speed is going to get taken.
Yeah.
Kind of a soft lock here.
So it really is Chord of Calling or bust.
Cursed Totem affects all creatures, right? Including
Correct.
Your own reflections of Kiki Jiki?
Yeah, that's how cards used to work.
I mean, them days back.
Back in the good old days.
Those were the days.
Magic as Garfield intended. When your cards actually have a downside.
Yeah. I think Magic as Garfield intended is actually pretty close to Universes Beyond stuff. He did Deckmaster was the thing.
I think it's more like Core Set Sealed, but we don't want to have that conversation.
Yeah. Core Set Sealed is pretty fun, though. All right. Hapatra the draw gets taken. Yeah. Dauthi Voidwalker in play as well. No attacks from Carpenter.
Yeah, there's a window in the draw step where Fumich can use the reflection, but before Carpenter has the opportunity to cast any sorcery speed cards, so he is locked out of his draw step.
Now we have a copy of a Voidwalker as well, which can cast something like Hapatra to start building up our side of the board, as well as has Reflection plus Grief to take every sorcery speed card from Brandon's draw step. This is just this is a disaster, if I'm being honest.
Carpenter took a risk when he had the Grist on 2. Could have killed the Grief and broken up this potential combo. Took the risk to try to keep the Grief around, and Fumich had the goods to blow up his blockers, attack the Grief down, and from that point on, it's been pretty sewn up here for our Rakdos Scam player.
All right, so we're going to attack for 6 with the Voidwalkers, putting Carpenter into 9, and we're threatening lethal next turn. We're going to make a Grief during the draw step. Carpenter has Bowmaster, so that does get flashed in, but that doesn't stop the Dauthi Voidwalkers, and that will be the end of this game. 2 Voidwalkers will come in actually 3 total Voidwalkers are going to get made between the end of turn and main phase, and that's going to be 12 damage coming across with Shadow.
It's a lot of Voidwalkers.
Sure is. Dude, Reflection, Kiki Jiki, Fable the Mirror Breaker. What a darn card. 12 ya. Fumich 2-0, moves to 5-0, likely double drawing with Rakdos Scam. Fury Ban? Who cares? Yeah. Who gives a crap?
Nobody else in our field can beat these Yawg players, but Fumich made easy work of it.